Hello everyone, this is Isaac White from the Crockett Tavern Museum here in Morristown, Tennessee. And we want to welcome you all to yet another special episode for our special mini-series in honor of America's 250th birthday, and that being the foods that made America. Now the dish that's on the menu today, I'm willing to bet that some of you have heard about it, at least by name, through a particular song that we used to sing commonly growing up. Now, you might know the dish by name, but you may not know exactly what it is, what it's comprised of, and how it's prepared. Well, we are going to answer all of those questions in today's episode, so if you don't know already, and I haven't given too much away, you still want to know what we have to make, well, you're just going to have to follow along for the rest of the episode. Stay tuned. So the dish that we're going to be talking about today is called Hasty Pudding. Now, almost immediately that should start to ring some bells in regards to remembering it, because a lot of us were introduced to that phrase from a very popular patriotic ballad, Yankee Doodle Dandy. Now, interestingly enough, the song was originally written as a diss towards the American populace or the American soldiers in general. One particular line in this song says that he stuck a feather in his cap and called it macaroni. Now, I'm here to tell you, that line puzzled me for a long time until I actually came across a video that explained it. And it's not that they were sticking feathers in their hats and calling it dry pasta. Rather, this is an insult to their fashion choices. Because at the time, there was a very wealthy Italian family known as the Macaronis, who had an extravagant fashion sense. So much so that they gave us kind of the stereotypes of fashion that we think about in the 18th century, like these very tall wigs with ribbons weaved into them, or also buckled shoes with ribbons on them as well. Now, suffice it to say that it's kind of like if you were to see a celebrity or a professional sports player today wearing a certain type of shoe or jacket, then you'd probably be prone to try and actually replicate his fashion sense. And that was the way it was for the Macaronis of Italy. And so, of course, the fashion sense spread throughout Europe, mostly on the mainland, before it, of course, reached the British Isles. Now, what we do find ironic is that the British, who were trying to replicate the macaroni fashion sense, they were looked down upon as somewhat rustic by mainland Europe. But yet, in turn, the British looked down upon their American cousins, and they said that their fashion sense was so far behind that they stuck a feather in their cap and called it the height of fashion. They called it macaroni. And so now you know a little bit more of useless knowledge than you did beforehand. But with that being said, folks, we also have another verse in the song going back to the dish for the day, and that is that the second verse in Yankee Doodle Dandy goes something like this. Father and I went down to camp along with Captain Gooden, and there we saw the men and boys as thick as hasty pudding. Well, what in the world is hasty pudding? I wondered about that myself for quite some time, until I finally came across a video wherein it explained what hasty pudding was and just how it was made. So I'm going to pass yet again some more useless knowledge on to you guys today. And basically, to sum it all up, hasty pudding is a thick and hearty type of pudding, or even a porridge, if you will, that is made out of either whole wheat flour, so basically whole grains, or it could also be made from cornmeal. And the reason it's called hasty pudding is because of how quickly it cooks, as opposed to some of the more elaborate pudding recipes of the day. Now, with that being said, we're going to go over the ingredients that we will need to make our hasty pudding, which would have been a treat for the average 18th century soldier. Stay tuned. So, to make our hasty pudding, one of the first things we're going to need is some cornmeal. Now, preferably you would get stone ground cornmeal, but this is a little bit on the finer side. Either way, it's still going to basically turn out about the same texture, the same consistency. We also have in our tin dipper, we have about a cup of water and of course also a 1/4 cup of the cornmeal. Now this is just basically a single serving, a single ration. We also have our pocket spice kit, and we'll show you what spices we're going to use here in just a moment. And then we also have some molasses, which was a more commoner sweetener of the day, considering that it was not being as heavily taxed as sugar. So we're going to go ahead and get everything together, and we'll show you the whole cooking process from start to finish, and then we'll give it a taste test. Alright folks, so now our water is starting to boil, and that means we're going to get ready to introduce our cornmeal into it. Now, for this you have to be careful. You only want to put in just a little bit at a time, and then stir it. And then put in a little bit more. Keep stirring it. And a little bit more until you get to the end there. And there you have it. So once you've got all your cornmeal in there, you're simply going to keep stirring. You might actually need to pour it back at this point. You don't want it too hot to where things will scorch or stick. But you do want to keep your water boiling and bubbling. And we're going to do this now for about 15 to 30 minutes, just really depends. And we should see it thickening up here pretty soon. Once it's done, we will go ahead and take it off the fire, and we will put in our seasonings and a little touch of molasses, and that'll kind of just send it over the edge. Alright folks, so we have our hasty pudding now off the fire, and the name hasty is well deserved. It hardly took any time at all to actually cook up. You can see it's already done. And the seasonings that we're going to be adding into our hasty pudding is a little bit, if I can get a hold of them, that is, a little bit of salt and a little bit of cinnamon. So we're going to go ahead and pour our salt in here first. And then we're also going to do our cinnamon. Okay, so there we go. A little bit of salt, a little bit of cinnamon, and basically this is kind of like your instant oatmeal for the day. And that reminds me, some people, they might like a little bit of honey, or they might like a little bit of molasses in their oatmeal. Comment on the video and tell me where you guys stand on this particular note. Do you like a little bit of honey or molasses in your oatmeal? I personally prefer molasses. So we're going to do just a touch, not too much. Also, when it comes down to molasses, you want to make sure, that is so good. You want to make sure that you actually get a very light molasses. Back then, it would typically have been referred to as Barbados molasses. And it is sweeter than blackstrap molasses. You know, so hey, you can still use blackstrap, but it is just a touch more bitter. And everything now is stirring up pretty well. And we're going to get ready to taste it here in just a moment. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so our hasty pudding is done. We've added a little bit of salt, a little bit of cinnamon, and just a touch of Barbados molasses. So with that being said, we're going to put this on here because the cup is still pretty hot, and despite historical accuracy being the ultimate goal, well, for one, we're talking on camera, so how historically accurate can that be? But I'm going to put on a little bit of a glove just to protect myself from the hot cup here, the hot tin dipper. But here we go. Again, we got everything all nice and mixed up. It doesn't look the most appetizing in the world, but trust me, the cinnamon alone kind of sold me on this. It just smells wonderful. So I've had corn puddings and slush, very similar to this, but this is my first time making hasty pudding. So we got a nice little spoonful here. Let's give it a try. Hopefully I won't burn my tongue off either. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now that's very much like a corn oatmeal that you would have for breakfast. I mean, honest to goodness, this would be a great breakfast. You know, for a fall or winter encampment, this is great. I mean, it's hot, it's nutritious, it's filling. That salt and cinnamon blends together so well, and that kick of molasses, especially towards the end, is wonderful. It's, you know, a porridge type texture, but at the same time, it almost kind of tastes like a ginger snap. So this is honestly wonderful. I could easily see why the soldiers of the day, or just the common person of the day, was eating this on a regular basis. Again, it doesn't take very long. It doesn't take very many ingredients. And you know what? For the British who try to use hasty pudding as an insult in Yankee Doodle Dandy, I will say I will own up to it 100%. This is a wonderful dish. So I would say that out of all the dishes that we've done so far for this mini-series, this is probably the best one so far. And highly encourage you guys to try it out for your next reenacting or camping event. And that being said, this pretty much concludes today's video. Hope you've enjoyed it, and we always want to thank you, each and every one of you, for following along on Facebook and YouTube. Your support is greatly appreciated. And all I can say is continue following along, because not only do we have a few more episodes for our Foods That Made America mini-series, but we also have a lot more episodes planned in advance as well. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead, get out of your day. This is tremendous. I'm probably going to go ahead and finish it off like I did with the fire cakes, because it is quite good. And I would highly encourage you again to try and make this out. But again, I'm going to shut up, get out of your day, and with that being said, until next week, this is Isaac White from the Crockett Tavern Museum, signing off for now, saying goodbye and God bless.